And I know that
We didn't just skip over. We just talked
about the boards.
that the boards.
Well,
they said that in Richmond that the boards.
Well, my view for what the point Tom's making, I think it's important. I have thought all along, though, as I know I have talked with lots of folks who have had every thought imaginable on school consolidation to this point. And the best that I can do in many cases, especially several months ago, is just run through the list of options we potentially have for whatever question they may have asked. I think as we get closer to something that is a complete plan, I think we're better off at that point putting that forward in whatever way the committee feels is best, and making sure that everyone has, ample opportunity to digest it. And then also, we have technically fulfilled it. You could probably lawyer and say, but in a very practical way, we have not fulfilled the one requirement, which is that we must hold a public hearing on the matter. And I would like for us to get to a point where we have a complete plan that folks can take a look at, and then allow a public comment meeting for that. That satisfies what's statutorily required, and then we may find, again, it's up to our discussion, but we may find that in some sense can be included on that evidence of public support. But I'm willing to go about that however we feel like we need to. But I do think it needs to be, whatever we do in that regard needs to have a full plan accompanying it.
I have a couple statements on that. I've seen so much false information coming from our community. I have seen, just the other night I saw a former committee member and former school board member make false accusations about our study. And if people see it on Facebook, they believe it's the gospel. And I think that our study has proved that there's a lot of information in there, and it has proved a lot of things that people have, falsehoods that people have come up with, and I think that I don't know how to best get the facts out to the community, but I think one of the things that they talked about the other day was a fact or fiction type something that we put out there.
I think there's a lot of different ways of community engagement that we can go, whether that be a fact or fiction sheet, or whether that be, I've heard it suggested that we come up with a sort of working summary as to where the committee's at, so that we're able to keep folks invested and up to date on where we are, what we've done, what we've talked about, and things. So I think there's a lot of ways that we can do that.
I mean, I think one of them is maybe we make a brief kind of summary of some of the things in our report and show people some numbers and things like that. Mr. Clemons the other night said that we didn't discuss benefits in the report, and he talked about how important the report was, that he had read over it and told all these people they should read over it, and then he said it didn't include benefits, which was a huge part of the report. And we've got to get out the right information, and I think that I think that you're correct, that we do need to.
So the report is on Covington City's website.
Right.
The report is on the Covington School Board website. Is it on the county or school board website?
No.
Y'all got it on y'all? Jerry's got it on.
Jerry's got it on the journal.
Until yesterday, I had extra copies with me, and anytime somebody said, I'd like to see that report, I handed it to them. I gave away the last one I had last night. But that document is not secret. It's available for anybody to read.
And I if anybody wants one to contact me, I can send you over a digital copy or a paper copy. I'm more than happy to, and I think that anyone can contact anyone on our board, and we'll send over a copy of it. But I think there are a lot of people that are not willing to read that many pages. And so perhaps it would be nice if we just put out a short little summary that just showed some of the numbers and what we're doing. You know, one of the things I keep hearing throughout the community is people talking about us, the first thing we want to do is get rid of 16 jobs and up our per pupil number. But
Was it 16 or 60?
well, I heard somebody say we want to get rid of 60 jobs, but you know, that was just a number, and we've talked about this in the past. That, you know, these men were tasked with coming up with some financial numbers for us, and they look at teachers as numbers and not as subjects and people. And it's our job as a board to look at them as people and part of our curriculum and part of our grades. So, you know, I think that, you know, that number has been talked about in bad ways, like we're trying to cut 16 people. Somebody went as far as to say how many potential children those people could have and how that could affect our school system. But, you know, that was just a financial analyst saying if you got rid of 16 positions, it would only bump you up one person, one per pupil, one pupil
But
per
nowhere
teacher.
in the report does it say that 16 people would lose their jobs and be out of work
No.
without being given an opportunity to have an incentive early retirement.
Right.
Which is a whole
One
lot
place it
different.
shows up is in Rockbridge's example.
Yeah.
Excuse
Right.
me, since I'm being attacked.
No, Mr. Clemons,
No,
we'll
since
talk
I'm
to you.
being
We'll talk to you
attacked, I
afterwards.
told no lies. Everything is referenced, and it does say right here, it implies
Mr. Clemons?
16 fewer teachers employed, saving $1 million a year. Okay. as
Mr.
the health
Clemons,
benefits
we're-
goes,
Mr. Clemons,
it
we've
also says
heard-
here that it's possible health benefits could be equalized.
What do I do
or
now?
increased slowly over time with no definites. So don't say I'm saying lies. Every statement I made has a page number referenced in here beside of it. And the second page of this
I'm not gonna
does
listen to this.
say $1 million is saved. You can throw me out if you want to, but don't you sit there.
All right,
and
Mr.
say I'm
Clemons,
a
you're-
liar.
Mr. Clemons, you're-
I referenced this report in every
Mr.
statement
Clemens, you're
I
out of
made.
order. You're out of order.
That's okay. You don't stand there and call me a liar.
Mr. Clemens,
No, you call me a liar, I defend myself.
you gave false accusations at the school board
Prove
meeting.
it. Show it to me. I have them right here.
Guys, we can't do this, y'all need to go.
You tell me the false accusations I made.
I think we need to set a date.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you point it out to me, then we'll talk about it. I'm
Yeah.
leaving, sure. You don't have to throw me out. But every statement
All right.
I made has a page number and a reference.
Yeah.
And the second page does say 16
To,
jobs to save $1 million.
so, excuse me, to Tom's, the last point that you made there was the frequency with which we will meet. So, do we have any thoughts on that? Are we're going to schedule twice monthly from here until the finish line here, or
I have
our
a
next?
For us,
concept, but
for us, but-
February the 6th, I'll be at UVA, I could not be here.
I think what, in my mind, where we need to be heading is, we get these committees working. This committee as a whole doesn't need to meet
Okay.
as often, but we need these subcommittees meeting regularly.
Mhm.
And I mean, I don't mean every other week, I mean regularly.
As frequently
Once a
as they're
week
able.
or whatever they need to do.
Right.
But if we don't get these things done, then we're not gonna have anything to present the 1st of July. And
Absolutely.
that's right around the corner, you know, we're sitting here in January and wind's blowing, it's cold. And if you meet once a month, you're in July and you haven't done it.
The subcommittee could meet once a week.
Yeah.
That's a lot to ask for people to do, but I mean, if you want to get.
If you wanna follow this timeline, you have to.
Well, I think once we get the committees together, they can determine when they're going to meet, but, and how
Right, okay.
often. Because, like you said, on the facilities, on the assessment, we're kind of up in the air right now with that because of the
But
assessment.
The finance is getting into budget time, so we
Yeah.
may not be able to meet once a week.
So, but, you know, I think those committees can decide how often for themselves it would be with.
And-
Perhaps when we talk to Mr. Lanford, Ms. Onitis, and Mr. Katalka, and Ms. Johnson, Snead Johnson, we can get them to give us some kind of dates. I know it's hard to get all those people together for all those different, all your different directors and things together for those things. So perhaps they can give us a little bit of an idea.
Who they recommend too.
What's that?
We need to know who they recommend.
Yeah, and who they recommend and kind of how when they could meet. I know a lot of those folks are probably going to want to meet during the daytime hours, but okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Well, perhaps Mr. Griffith, you said February 6th you couldn't.
Be here, so. I would love to, but when I got to go down there, it's more important than this.
I hear you. So, what are we
this month, Jake, just to make sure they're all subcommittee.
do we want to try to meet on the 30th of January?
I mean, it's all right for me. I mean, just.
That is the 5th Thursday of the month,
Thursday?
Mr.
Yeah, that's
Tucker.
fine.
That a
I
Thursday?
realize that.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay, yeah. I can meet.
I know you like those Thursday
But
meetings.
that way, we can at least make sure that who's going to be on these committees and get them going.
Right. And does that give you all enough time to kind of figure out things to people to put on the committees and hopefully?
Well, they'll do the best
Yeah.
they can. I mean, we'll have to work with them.
And
so
hopefully by
we
that
can-
point, we'll hear a little something back from Troutman Sanders and possibly about the facilities recommendations, timeline.
Got one more thing.
Absolutely.
We're going to talk about buildings sooner or later. We danced around it, we haven't talked about it, and we got to either put it on the agenda or something. You're going to have to figure out everything and where you're going to be to do the subcommittees. We're going to need to know that.
Right, and I think that's one of the things that we're hoping that the facility study will tell us a little bit about that, and help us make some decisions.
That's got a lot. That's going to tell you a lot of public opinion. That's going to tell you finance and.
Absolutely. And one of the,
You can't put it off to the last minute. So
Right.
We're going to have to talk about it.
right. Well, at our Monday meeting, Mr. Franson brought up a good point that, he wouldn't ask everybody what they think about whether they approve a consolidation plan or not until they have some sort of plan. So, we spoke quite a bit about that, and I think that's definitely something we're going to have to knock out. But hopefully, through some of these studies and committees, some of those questions will answer themselves.
So I think we need to go back to what Jonathan said a little bit ago about the fact or fiction sheet. That needs to be available. There needs to be a sheet that we can look at and say, this is what the report says, this is the fact, this is the fiction. Until we do that, it's each and every person that reads it interprets or skips a page, and the next thing you know, you've got either good information or bad information, but we need to be able to say which is which.
Right. So if we could do something that maybe just limited to one sheet of paper, front and the back, or something like that, so we could easily give it out to people, it could easily be read. We could put it in the newspaper.
Put it in the newspaper.
Put it in the newspaper and put it on the journal.
You need to have it with you. You don't need to argue about it. This
Right.
is what it says.
Right.
Because if you remember when we went to Kerfman Hall, most of those things that people objected to, the reason they didn't want to consolidate, wasn't even remotely close to being true.
Right.
The page he's speaking of is the summary of these that was put together by the author. And it refers to somebody else's school system and how they did it. And if we copied that, this is what it would do. It didn't say that we were doing that. You have to read the whole report to figure that out.
And I said that a few weeks ago. It's important that everybody reads.
It's in the
and knows
report.
what it says.
He's right about that.
It is.
But it doesn't represent Allegheny County, it represents
Just an
Rockledge
example.
County.
Right. And to
Right.
be fair to anyone, as I think Jacob said earlier, I mean, it's a big document. It's not exactly a light read, depending upon your background. So I think putting together something that helps us separate wheat from chaff will be a good idea.
So perhaps what we could do is between now and then, folks could suggest some topics that they would like to see on that, some different facts that people would like to see on a easy read, and we could have that ready for the next meeting.
That's going to
What
be,
school we picked? None.
Right.
Because I've heard all kind of,
Right. So January 30th, is that going to be our next meeting?
Yes.
I thought you went to church on Wednesdays.
I go a lot of times, Jacob.
You're a good man.
I need it.
If Mr. Spangler would be willing to host us here again on the 30th, we could meet here and avoid any confusion. Do we want to try to schedule a meeting after? Two meetings in a row?
Might be a good idea to meet at the church.
Let's see where the committees are.
Meet at Tom's church.
We can do that.
You can do that.
We need to see where the committees are.
Okay.
We may not need to be.
So we will plan to be here. Right. So January 30th, we'll plan to meet here again at 6 p.m.
Right here.
Yeah.
And by then, they'll give us our ideas for the people on the committee. And they-
I think we'll be a lot further along with that. So
Perhaps Mr. Aaron and I will work a little bit on a fact sheet, that kind of thing. We'll get some information over to our different heads, and we'll have lots of information coming into the 30th of January.
Email us a copy before we did it.
Oh, yeah.
are we good?
I'm good. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right.
I'm in favor.